Have you ever had a situation that it took you a really long time to figure out what was the optimal choice to choose? That whole process kind of sapped out the fun of the product, made you feel unsure about it? Well, the paradox of choice covers this extensively. So first and foremost, I'd say you have to watch the Paradox of Choice video by Barry Schwartz that's linked in the description below. He does an exceptional job at presenting this subject, giving a series of examples that just show how bad the paradox of choice is on people taking choices, how long it could have them to take a choice, how bad it can be to in terms of satisfaction, how hard it can be, how it could lead to depression. And it's just something very important to keep in mind. When we're overwhelmed by too many decisions, often it detracts from the pleasure that we can get. If we think about just like shopping for different paint colors, there's just so many choices out there that it takes a long time to figure out what your optimal choice is. And if you spend a long time looking at it, you might not be as happy because when you take it, you might think, well, I probably should have gone with the other color. Where if you would have had a situation where you would have a limited amount of options and there's only one clear winner, well, as soon as you have that, you put it up, even though it might not be perfect, you're happy with it because it's really close to your optimal color. And in that situation, you have an outcome which, out of all the other options out there, they were limited. You couldn't have done better. So you're not second guessing and it's not having this toll on you. And it's something that we have to keep in mind in many aspects of our life. Sometimes we have a tendency to try to have as many options available to us in the future in terms of a career. So we do a bunch of different things. We try to open up as many doors as possible. But the problem with that, it's beautiful because you have a lot of options, you have a lot of escape routes. But sometimes the problem with that is that you have a situation where you just have too many choices. And then when you have to make a choice, it seems overwhelming. So how could we minimize those choices and how could we make it as simple as possible without necessarily doing the bad choices, but how could we not focus on the alternatives to have them detract from our happiness? We don't want to spend our lives always thinking like, what would have happened if I would have ended up with this other person, which was kind of my other potential partner? What would have happened if I would have had this other job or this other project or this other trip? We don't want to always be thinking about that alternative option. And associated to this is the concept of regret theory, which I'll cover in a separate video, which looks at fearing of missing out, the FOMO effect of saying like, I might do this because I really want to make sure that I don't miss out on a certain event. Kind of leads with all your possible choices and you want to make sure you make the right one. And that regret theory is stronger in certain situations when you actually have a certain level of regret. So we'll get back to that in a separate video. But all in all, the paradox of choice is very important for you guys to consider. And you want to find tools at your disposal so that you have a situation where you can limit your options, you can just focus on what's positive out there and be happy what you purchase, be happy with the life that you have and not try to constantly be thinking of all the options. It gets exhaustive. And if you think about this whole process, there's part of it from the consumer standpoint, but the other part I want to focus on in this class is the part from the producer standpoint. The problem sometimes with the paradox of choice is when you don't have much guidance. I think of an example myself that I like in terms of heli skiing. Like sometimes I like to go out and guide a group of people either heli skiing or ski touring. And naturally speaking, I want them to be as satisfied as possible. And if I think about that, well, as we're flying up or as we're hiking up a hill, I could ask them when we get to the top, do you guys prefer kind of like a more open run or treed run? And then I might have people in the group saying like, I don't care, and you choose. And I end up choosing. But because I asked them that question, they have a tendency to think, well, what the other option have been better? Like this was fun, but like, what about the other option? Okay. Same thing goes for if I ask at the beginning of class, like I've tried this many times in many classes, to ask students and try to figure out what would be their preference in terms of a marking scheme for the class. Should we have this kind of marking scheme or this kind of marking scheme? Should we focus more on a really large project or an exam? The problem with asking the question is that a lot of people are shy and not many people state their preferences. So I end up taking the decision in the end regardless. But because I asked the question, it also leads to this situation where they think, would the other option have been better? And it kind of detracts from this option. And that's something you want to avoid. So if I think about the ski guiding example, I'd say a better approach to think of taking when you're ski guiding is when you're skiing in the morning, when you're kind of like hiking up, getting sorted, doing different activities with the guests, and you're trying to figure out what they like, what they do in their life, and so on. Well, just ask some common questions like, what are their preferences? What really gets them stoked when it comes to skiing? And just have those general questions, trying to understand, chit chat. And by understanding what they like, without asking them which of these trails you'd like to take, then you could easily say, hey, we're going to go down this hill. Hey, Jimmy, there's a jump over there. I really know you like cliff drops. There's one over there that's really nice. Hey, Beth, this part here, the trees are much tighter. I know you like the challenge. Hey, Ron, I know you like open spaces. There's this nice open area just over here, and so on. And you could kind of tailor it. And then they feel like you're really looking into their preferences and you're making the decision. You're the one that has more information. Because at the end of the day, there's this idea of information. They're relying on you because you have all of this information. You have this information in terms of what this slope looks like versus this slope. And because you have this information, they try to default to you to knowing, well, what's best in my case. Same thing if you go see a stereo salesman and you say, well, these are the things I like, which one should I get? And if your salesman just says, well, you can have this, which has these options, you can have these options, choose whatever you want. Well, you're not getting guided. You're just given a bunch of information that could be overwhelming. So I think the better approach to avoiding people feeling overwhelmed is by trying to get as much information as possible from them, and then you taking the decision for them because you're the expert in this field. So something to consider. And then another part associated to choice is making things as simple as possible for people to choose is one of the reasons as well where competitors tend to be close to one another. Because that way it's easier to see the different options and make a choice. But once again, too many choices can be overwhelming for people. So there's things to consider in terms of location of yourself with other businesses, but also as you, as a business salesman or someone offering a service, how you should guide people towards their preferences instead of just giving them all the options and giving them the responsibility to choose. And that's one of the big topics that's covered in the Barry Schwartz video that's really interesting to see. Looking forward to having more of these discussions on paradox of choice from the homework that you'll have to do on this and having discussions in class. It's a very big and important subject in this behavioral economics course. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you guys on the next one. If you found this video interesting, please consider subscribing or joining my class where I guide you to apply and expand on the information found in these videos to real life examples. Have a good day.